Getting started with AWS, I mean, there are many companies that are just getting on board right now. I mean, what one or two pieces of advice would you give to a newbie, a raw newbie getting on board with Amazon Web Services? What should they be thinking of? Bernard, you wrote the book on the topic. Why don't you start us off on this?
Well, I always encourage companies to find a low-risk standalone kind of application. So rather than trying to boil the ocean and build something that's got to integrate back to 4 different systems inside the company's firewall and has all the compliance requirements, so a website, maybe even a temporary website, or perhaps some sort of analytics that you can kind of download data into with data that doesn't have privacy implications. Something that can be relatively self-contained, I think, is a good start to go do with Amazon. That way you can learn more about the service, experiment with it, start to find out what it does, without having a lot of extra overhead of trying to integrate it with everything else.
So a low-risk start is really what you're saying.
Yep.
Yeah. Paul, your advice to a complete newbie on Amazon Web Services, what should they be aware of as they first launch?
Well, so I guess for a complete newbie, if it's an individual and they're more of a developer, they should probably dive in and start experimenting and thinking about writing some applications that can take advantage of the unique capabilities of Amazon. I think what Bernard talked about really makes a lot of sense for companies, however, to find that low-risk application, find something that you can take that maybe you even already have it and move it into the cloud and see how it works there.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy, you are certainly an old hand in Amazon Web Services. When did you first get on board with AWS, with Netflix?
Well, actually, it was before Netflix. I got on board with AWS with Reddit.
Oh, okay.
When I moved Reddit from a data center to the cloud. So that was all the way back in 2007.
Wow.
Seven.
What do you know now, or what do you wish you knew as you were just getting on board with Amazon Web Services that you can tell folks about?
Probably the best advice I would give is don't just treat Amazon like rented servers, because that's not what it is. It can be used that way, but that's about the worst way that you can use it. You really, I think Paul said it best, you need to write things that take advantage of the way the cloud works, that take advantage of the features that Amazon and the other cloud providers offer you. Things like auto-scaling groups. Think about your compute clusters, not individual machines. You got to remember that the machines are basically disposable. They're ephemeral. They're not always going to be there, so don't treat them that way. Don't put critical data on one server. Make sure it's replicated. Things like that.
Okay. And Matt, you started with Amazon Web Services. What's your advice to folks? Just newbies?
I would echo what Jeremy said, and I'd turn it around a little bit. Everything you thought you knew about writing web-scale software, you need to challenge that, because the little shortcuts you can take in your own colo, like slamming in an SSD or a faster interconnect or a bigger database server, the cloud used to not be allowed to do that. Now you can, and it just costs you an arm and a leg. People underestimate how hard it is to write software where the only answer is more, not bigger and more complex. And I think Netflix has done a great job in leading the way in how to get more of the same kind of drones in your cluster rather than a bigger, more faster, more memory. And everyone we see who's starting on the cloud, they need to do what Bernard said, because you will underestimate how hard it is to do that right. And your first project will hit some kind of performance problems that you don't understand because you assume this is just like a bare metal server.
Right, and then there's going to be the sort of upsetness in the C-suite. Hey, this is supposed to be easy, and suddenly we're having problems with this thing.
Totally. I mean, we're having some challenges right now with a deadlock on a database that comes and goes, and our software is designed to kind of just fail gracefully for that. But the first time you hit that, it can be a real problem.